The Vikings were seafaring people from the late 8th to early 11th century. They hailed from the Scandinavian lands of Norway, Denmark, and Sweden, and their journeys took them far and wide across Europe, Asia, and North America. The term Viking comes from the Old Norse word Vikinger, meaning pirate or raider, and is used to refer to people from Scandinavia who engaged in maritime expeditions during what is now known as the Viking Age. The Vikings were not a unified group or a single political entity, but rather a collection of clans and chiefdoms. Misunderstandings. Despite the popular image of Vikings wearing horned helmets, there's actually no historical evidence to suggest that they did. This image is largely a myth, probably popularized by 19th century Romanticism and later by depictions in modern media and pop culture. Most of the helmets that have been found from the Viking Age, approximately 800–1100 AD, are simple and practical, designed to provide protection in battle. These helmets typically consisted of a bowl to protect the head, with a guard around the eyes and nose. None of the complete Viking helmets that have been found have had horns. The idea of the horned Viking helmet seems to have originated from depictions in Viking Age or earlier Nordic art, where warriors and gods are sometimes shown wearing helmets or hats with horns, wings, or other decorations. However, these are thought to be ceremonial or symbolic, rather than practical for battle. This misinterpretation was perpetuated during the 19th century, particularly in the works of artists such as Gustav Malmström. It was further popularized by the costume designer Carl Emil Doppler, who included horned helmets in his designs for Richard Wagner's opera cycle, The Ring of the Nibelung, in the 1870s. The powerful image of the horn-helmeted Viking stuck in popular imagination, despite its lack of historical accuracy. So, while the image of a Viking in a horn helmet can make for dramatic and entertaining visuals in films, cartoons, and games, it's not a true reflection of what Vikings would have worn in real life. Along with the misconception about horned helmets, there are many other common misunderstandings about the Vikings. Vikings are often portrayed as mindless brutes who lived only for raiding and pillaging. While it's true that they were formidable warriors, they were also skilled traders, explorers, and craftsmen. They established extensive trade networks from North America to Asia, explored and settled new lands, and created intricate artwork. Their extensive trade routes reached as far east as the distant lands of Afghanistan, and artifacts like Buddha statues and Arabic coins have been found in Scandinavia. Despite the often grimy depictions of Vikings in popular culture, archaeological evidence suggests that they were likely quite fastidious about personal hygiene. Combs, tweezers, razors, and ear-cleaning tools have been found in Viking settlements, indicating they took cleanliness seriously. Contrary to popular belief, the Vikings did not wear just drab, dark colors. Archaeological findings have revealed that they wore a range of vibrant colors, including red, blue, and yellow. They used natural dyes made from plants, insects, and minerals to color their clothes. While it's common to imagine a Viking as a large, bearded man with long hair, there's actually no historical evidence to suggest that all Viking men sported such a look. Sculptures and other historical artifacts show Viking men with a variety of hairstyles and facial hair. There is a myth that Vikings drank from the skulls of their defeated enemies. This image is based on a misinterpretation of lines in Old Norse poetry and is not supported by archaeological evidence. Vikings and death. Viking attitudes towards death were deeply ingrained in their cultural beliefs and Norse mythology. A good death, one that was considered honorable, was usually a death in battle. Dying in this manner allowed a Viking warrior to be chosen by the Valkyries, female figures who chose who would die in battle and who may live. Those chosen would join the god Odin in Valhalla, the Hall of the Slain, where they would feast and prepare for the events of Ragnarok, the prophesied end of the world in Norse mythology. In contrast, a peaceful death from old age or disease was not considered desirable or honorable. Such deaths might lead to an afterlife in Hell, the underworld realm ruled by the goddess Hel. This realm is often portrayed in a negative light in Norse sagas, and it was generally avoided by the Vikings if at all possible. Another form of a dishonorable death in the Viking culture was dying with unfulfilled oaths or promises. In a Viking society, oaths and vows were considered binding and serious. This was especially true of warriors, who would often make oaths before going into battle. They believed that breaking an oath was a grave dishonor that could impact their fate in the afterlife. If a Viking died with an unfulfilled oath or promise, it was thought to be a dishonorable death, potentially impacting their standing in the afterlife. Norse sagas are filled with stories of heroes who go to great lengths to fulfill their vows, demonstrating the cultural importance of oath-keeping in this society. The concept of oaths and promises were so integral to Norse society that they even had a god named Var, who was the overseer of agreements and oaths between men and women. Breaking an oath was seen as invoking the wrath of Var. Moreover, failing to keep a promise or fulfill an oath could lead to becoming a draugr, an undead creature in Norse mythology. Draugr were said to be driven by a need to fulfill their uncompleted tasks or to exact revenge for wrongs done to them during their life. If a person died before they could fulfill an oath, it often fell to their kin to carry out the task in their stead. This allowed the dead to maintain their honor even after death. In such cases, the burden of the unfulfilled oath became a part of the family's honor that could span generations. Furthermore, the concept of a straw death, dying in bed due to sickness or old age, was considered a bad death. Vikings preferred the spear death, which was to die in combat. These attitudes toward death also influenced their funerary practices, which could be quite elaborate. These often included ship burials, where the deceased was placed in a ship along with their belongings, and even sometimes sacrificed slaves. This practice reflected the belief that these items, and even the sacrificed individuals, would accompany the deceased in the afterlife. Viking compass. Navigation was key to the Vikings' success as seafarers, traders, and raiders. They had a variety of methods to determine their course and position at sea, including the observation of the sun, stars, birds, and other sea creatures. However, the idea of a solar compass and sunstones is one of the most fascinating aspects of Viking navigation techniques. The solar compass, or a sun compass, is a tool that is believed to have been used by the Vikings to navigate. It is a disc with a central gnomon, a stick or a spike that casts a shadow, and markings around the edge indicating the direction for each hour of the day. By observing the shadow cast by the gnomon, Vikings could determine the cardinal directions. This simple yet effective instrument could be used in conjunction with the position of the sun to determine the ship's heading. However, the sun compass only works when the sun is visible, and in the North Atlantic, where the Vikings often sailed, fog and cloudy conditions are common. This is where the theory of sunstones comes into play. Sunstones are a type of mineral, possibly Icelandic spar, a clear, naturally occurring calcite, which can polarize light and thereby determine the direction of the sun even when it's obscured by clouds or just below the horizon. When viewed through a sunstone, the sky appears in different shades of brightness, depending on the stone's orientation relative to the sun. The theory of how exactly Vikings used sunstones is based on the discovery of a sunstone in a shipwreck from the 16th century. The Aldraker hypothesis posits that a sunstone could be used to detect the polarization pattern of the sky and thereby locate the sun's position, even in overcast conditions or when the sun is just below the horizon at twilight. To use a sunstone, a Viking navigator would have to hold the stone up to the sky and rotate it until a certain point in its field of view appeared darkest. They would then know that the direction of the incoming light was opposite the sun's position. The combination of the solar compass and a sunstone could have allowed the Vikings to navigate accurately, even in challenging conditions, and to voyage to distant lands with remarkable precision. Vikings mark. The Vikings, known for their seafaring skills and exploration, left behind graffiti or carvings in various places they visited, providing us with some intriguing insights into their journeys and experiences. Perhaps the most famous example of Viking graffiti is found in the Hagia Sophia in Istanbul, Turkey. The runic inscriptions found there include the phrase, "Halfdan was here," carved by a member of the Varangian Guard, a unit of Viking mercenaries employed by the Byzantine Empire. The Maeshote Neolithic chambered cairn and passage grave on the mainland island of Orkney in Scotland is another notable site. Vikings who broke into the tomb in the 12th century left behind runic inscriptions on the walls. Many of these inscriptions are quite humorous, including boasts, poems, and even a complaint about the cold. In the small village of Anthony Crucis in England, a 9th century Viking carved a rough image of a sailing ship into the tympanum, a semicircular or triangular decorative wall surface of the village church. This is one of the earliest depictions of a Viking ship in England. A cave known as Surtshellar in Iceland has a large number of runic inscriptions and symbols carved into its walls. The cave is known to have been used by Vikings, possibly for ceremonial purposes. There are multiple rune stones found in Sweden, carved by members of the Varangian Guard, that mention far-off places such as London, Constantinople, and Jerusalem, providing evidence of Viking travels. These examples show that wherever they went, Vikings left their mark, literally, through these ancient graffiti. Linguistic Legacy. The Vikings left a substantial linguistic legacy in the places they visited and settled. The Viking invasions and settlements in Britain, particularly in the north and east, an area often referred to as the Danelaw, had a profound influence on the English language. Many English words of today are of Old Norse origin. These include everyday words such as sky, egg, cake, knife, husband, window, and they slash them there among others. Old Norse also influenced English syntax, the way sentences are structured, and pronunciation. The Old Norse language, spoken by the Vikings, developed into the modern Scandinavian languages, Icelandic, Norwegian, Danish, and Swedish. Icelandic is considered the closest to Old Norse, and studying it provides the best understanding of the language the Vikings spoke. Many place names, especially in the British Isles and Normandy, bear the mark of the Viking presence. For example, in England, places ending in by, like Grimsby or Whitby, or Thorpe, like Scunthorpe, are of Viking origin. By meant village or settlement in Old Norse, and Thorpe meant a secondary settlement or farm. The Rus people, who were of Viking origin, gave their name to areas of Eastern Europe, giving us names such as Russia and Belarus. The Vikings left some traces in the Russian language, although the influence is not as strong as in English. Skiing. The tradition of skiing has deep roots in Scandinavian culture, going back thousands of years. The oldest evidence of skis, found in Russia and estimated to be about 8,000 years old, show that people have been skiing for a very long time. Vikings, who lived in Scandinavia from around 800 to 1100 AD, are believed to have used skis not only for recreation but also as a practical means of transportation during the harsh Nordic winters. The Old Norse word for ski, skid, means a stick of wood, reflecting the basic nature of the earliest skis. Moreover, there's a Norse god Ullr, often depicted with skis or a bow, associated with skiing, hunting, and the winter. Some sagas and ancient poems also reference skidfordy or skifaring, indicating the use of skis for traveling. It's important to note that Viking skis were very different from the modern equipment we use today. They were long, wooden, and often only one ski was used in combination with a single pole. The ski would be covered in fur, with the fur pointing backwards to prevent the ski from sliding backwards. Interestingly, skis were not only used on snow. The Vikings also used them on marshland, using the broad surface of the ski to distribute the wearer's weight more effectively, much like modern snowshoes. Even in their seafaring expeditions, Vikings are believed to have carried skis, notably in their explorations of Greenland. For the Vikings, skiing was a practical adaptation to their environment, allowing them to travel efficiently across their snow-covered homeland.